Hello, welcome to another episode of Mega Manga Monday. I am Jason Hahn, writer for ScreenRant.com, and I'm the host of Mega Manga Mondays, a podcast where we talk about new chapters of the series we love. And today we're focusing on My Hero Academia, chapter 375 and episode 11 of the anime sixth season that's happening right now. If you're worried about manga spoilers, breathe easy. We're going to talk about the anime first, and then you can go ahead and check in the description there about the timeline of when we start talking about the manga. So you can breathe easy and sit back and relax. But I, Jason Hahn, big fan of My Hero Academia. This last couple chapters, we have one particular guest who's been very, very excited about certain things getting animated, and we finally got to it. So I'm pretty excited to hear their thoughts. Steven, how you doing, man?
Hey, Jason. Yeah, it's going well. My name's Steven. Write for the comics slash manga slash anime sections, as well as doing some interviews as well. But yeah, like Jason was saying, really excited, both for the manga and for the anime. So very excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. And besides this huge Toga Ochaco fan, we've got another guest on that is always giving us great insight into My Hero Academia. Always a pleasure to have him on. Carlisle, how you doing today, bud?
Hey, everybody. Carl Edmondson, also a writer at Screen Rant, working in anime and manga. And this obviously a long-awaited episode, so excited to talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll jump right into the anime, officially titled Dabi's Dance. It's one of those things that for the entirety of My Hero Academia, ever since he was a little bit teased that there might be an older Todoroki kid, most people are like, probably Dabi.
Yeah.
And I remember when it was first, when we got to this part of the manga, we were like, well, duh, but still, like the way it's delivered, especially like with the Shigaraki thing winding down and then Giga Machina showing up, like things are dreadful, things are sad. And then Dabi gets there and just makes it all worse. How the is it Map? No, it's Bones is still doing the anime, right? Yeah, the way that they like represented Endeavor just like crumbling, especially while Dabi's like doing his whole dance and laughing and stuff. And we were chatting a little bit before the podcast. I didn't love the dance. I fine with him dancing and being happy. I was almost thinking it would have been really cool if they had kind of stuck with it rather than cutting all over the place and it just feeling like kind of weird just to see him randomly do this or randomly do that. If they like choreographed it almost like Walking Phoenix's Joker movie, like there's an awesome scene in that after he does his first kill, spoilers, where he's like reflecting in a mirror and he starts dancing to music that he hears, and it's like a really cool scene. I guess is the lack of a better term for that, but I thought that would have. I think that might have been what they're kind of going for, but the cuts just really threw me out. But otherwise, I thought they handled the moment really, really well. But that is not specifically the moment that Steven has been waiting for. Last episode, it also started to kind of tease Ochaco and Toga. Old lady shows up and says, "Oh my God, my husband needs help." And then she has more stamina and runs really fast. And it's Toga leading her into a trap. And oh boy, the music, the suspense, the tension, the choice of framing, like I thought they handled the moment really, really well. Yeah. What are your guys' thoughts?
I mean, I'll just say, just because this is like the most important moment to me in the whole story, basically, like, not to spoil anything, but it is like a foundation of my fandom in the series. And, you know, reading it in the manga really impacted me. And so I think just what it all comes down to is I built it too much in my head, even though I knew it was going to happen. And I felt kind of underwhelmed by it just because it's so important to me. I mean, it's still a great moment. Huh?
Why? I would love for you to break down for the audience why
I don't know how I
like
can articulate it well. Like, I feel like, so when I was reading it, obviously, I think it was just my whole reading experience, because I remember reading it in the manga and I was like focusing on every panel, like just sucking it in. And I felt like there weren't enough, like it just swiftly just went past her to get to the whole Dabi thing. And I knew that was going to happen. Like the episode was called is Dabi's Dance. So I knew that was coming, but I just felt like just because it was so important to me, I wanted more of the focus on them. Like I really don't know how they would have done it. Like maybe more close-up shots. I mean, I feel like we don't like we get that brief moment of Toga crying, but you don't get that actual photo. Like it's just so fleeting. And for me, I remember just like, oh my god, she is crying type of deal when I was reading the manga. And it felt like if I didn't know what was happening, I don't think I would have realized that she was crying.
Mm.
But it's just because, like, again, built it up in my head probably just way too much. And just the fact that, it just was kind of sidelined to give way to Dabi's story, which is important. I mean, it's a massive moment.
Yeah.
But it's just, I just wanted more because I'm selfish and I didn't get it. So I think it was done very well. I just wanted more.
Okay. I think I could see, like, because I mean, you've always really enjoyed like the romance aspect of like Ochaco and Deku, and then Toga coming in and being the chaotic, evil third part of that love triangle. Something we don't really see in fiction very often. Like we do see the love triangle dynamic, but when one of them is just like toxic, insane, and deadly, it's like, okay, that obviously shouldn't work out, but nobody's telling them that. So and I think that might be why the anime may have suffered for you in that aspect, because I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole time I'm guessing you're reading it from Toga's perspective, and the anime has to balance both Toga's and Ochako's perspective there. So it kind of might have taken you out of the Toga emotions, which are palpable.
I mean, that could have, but even then too, I feel like that Ochako wasn't as vehement enough in her disgust of Toga, because that was one of the things that really got to me, was that Toga is basically putting herself on the line here, and I remember, like, again, I should have reread the chapter after that, but I never did, so I could be completely wrong. But I just remember Ochaku just tearing her down so much more than the anime did. It felt like it was glossed over, just because like it is a really important time for her. I mean, based on what happens in the manga, so I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, I just think, yeah, it's just built it up too much in my head.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you think of the moment, Carlisle? I thought it was pretty well done.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well done. I do think that it probably was hurt a little bit by being split across the 2 episodes. I think probably would have been better served all together in 1 episode. But I feel like it's handled pretty well. It's difficult to make Ochako, especially with the way that she's portrayed in the anime, both her English and Japanese voice actors, to have her just be very outright mean like that. I think it wouldn't work very well. So they may have toned it down a little bit.
Yeah, I almost feel like at least when the scene first started, she's just like, "Oh, I need to stop Toga right now." But it just felt like she was talking to any generic villain almost. It just felt like that's what she would be saying to anybody. But it was about halfway through the scenario. I think it was after like Toga got her pinned and she's like whispering in her ear sweet nothings, and then like throws her into a different room. And then I feel like that's kind of when both like Toga snapped and Ochako snapped and felt like, okay, this is like much more than just a one-on-one fight here. Like this is two very conflicting, relationships that have been building. And I thought by the end of it, I was just like, oh, I feel like they nailed that pretty well. But yeah, I do think it could have been a little bit better. It breaking up into 2 episodes, absolutely, Carlisle. Like from us as manga readers who love this sort of relationship and dynamic and character arcs and stuff like that, it would have been a great break in the whole pacing of this season just to have a whole episode away from all the big fights that have been going on to focus on this one conversation and kind of fight in this one apartment. Would have been great thematically, but I think they probably wanted to break it up for all the other people who are more into the punch battling and all the other stuff going on.
I gotta say too, like kind of just going off what you were saying earlier, like it is interesting because, like you said, I'm really big into the whole romance aspect in series, especially like I love the whole Deku and Ochaco dynamic. But it just to like give it some perspective is that I appreciate or I'm more invested in Ochaco and Toga's relationship than Deku and Ochaco, and more than Toga and Deku. Like theirs is the one that I'm focused on the most, and it's weird because it's not romantic, but it just had there's just this. It feels just almost more real. That's not a good way of saying it, but just because it isn't romance based, but because of that, it just makes it just seem more visceral. If that makes any sense, because there isn't any of that emotion. It's something more than that. Because usually it's easy to show that someone's in love. Like you can do it a number of ways, but when you're able to have, show characters have an emotional connection that seems stronger than love, that's a really hard feat to do. And that was something that I've really got in the manga. So, I mean, but again, I'm not saying it's a bad moment. It's been building in my head for years. I think it's been years now. So
it does feel like it. I remember, and again, we won't spoil it, but what's about to happen in the anime, especially with the preview, and they're like teasing somebody else showing up. I was just like, that's like I remember being in my job I hated more than a year ago, and when that happened in the anime or the manga, I was like, oh my god, they're back. I love this person so much. And I won't get into it right now, but oh boy, I'm going to be a very excited mess in the next hopefully if the next episode adapts that part pretty well. But I guess what other stuff in the anime episode do you think you guys wanted to talk about? Because the Dabi moment kind of is an over-encompassing sort of thing. And getting to see the reactions of Endeavor, as I talked about earlier, of course, the Todoroki mom getting that news as well. But I loved like Shoto just being like, do that later, Dad. Like, freak out later. We got to protect them. And Shoto like instantly telling the number one hero what he needs to do. And while Dabi's coming in to take them out. But I thought Best Jeanist's intro was awesome. I think the anime has made me a much bigger Jeanist fan than the manga managed to do.
I'm glad that they showed him there, because I don't think they show him in the manga. It's just I think it's just a speech bubble, or maybe it's a little bit of a silhouette, but it's very clearly Best Jeanist in the anime. It's like, oh, okay, we know what's going on now.
Yeah, I think even like halfway through the episode, they just show him in a plane, and he's just like, "We gotta get there," and you're like, "Oh, okay, well, good to see he's not dead." Because
I think that's the opening.
Was it
the cold open, right? Right there on the plane. Okay.
Yeah, well, I guess he's got to show up, so kind of kills the tension a little bit there. I thought, oh man, it almost would have been better if they didn't do that, because we just got the like announcement from Dabi, like, oh, the heroes suck, they're all scum. They killed a defenseless dude who was a villain and killed lots of people, and they killed the Best Jeanist, and he's an abusive father, and I did like all the different like reactions, like especially there's the one kid who's like a super Endeavor fan. I thought that was really powerful and really helped like establish, even the people out there who are like, this dumb trick won't work, and just watching that kid's like hope and excitement kind of crumble was just like, oh man, this is getting to some as we know what happens in the manga, but it was a great intro to the end. I think is the
Dabi does a great job with that video, like laying out his case and establishing credibility and everything. He really thought this through. He's planning
a lawyer
for a long time.
He called Saul.
Yeah, I mean, it takes just to go on the other thing we're talking about, like that's one of the things I actually enjoyed Dabi's dancing, is just because it's obvious that, you know, he's been thinking this for a while, and it just feels like he is basically reaching this manic moment, and it really comes across like I feel like it needed to be as random as it was, just in my mind, just because it's like he's been holding this in for like forever, and now he's not only just saying it to Endeavor's face, but he's broadcasting this message to the world. It's like, this is the moment I've been dreaming of, and it's finally happening. So like I was totally feeling his little dance thing.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I totally enjoyed that too. It's just I wish that it wasn't so, and I hate the word, but it's almost like I hated how anime it was because we needed to keep jumping around to everyone's reaction. If it had just stayed with him and actually animated like the full like dancing while he's like narrating, I think I would have enjoyed it more. But not to say that it was a bad moment. I just wasn't a fan of the editing there. But
right. Well, that makes sense.
But
it does get a little weird there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand why, because I mean, I've also said just minutes ago, I liked, you know, getting to see everybody's reactions, like Endeavor's and the kid on the computer and stuff. And if you have a solid 4 or 5 minutes of Dabi just narrating while doing some sort of dance, that would be really hard to animate. Just a solid 3-4 minutes of this manic dude monologuing while dancing. So I get why they did it, but yeah. I guess anything else about the anime before we go into manga?
I mean, I just gotta say what I want to say it kind of is a spoiler for manga, so I guess I'll wait for that part. But it basically, this scene just justifies my feelings about what's been happening in the manga. So
okay, we'll get into it. We'll go ahead and transition into it. But yeah, we'll definitely be talking about the new anime episode. Oh boy, actually, I read a little distressing news this morning. Apparently, the manga is going to be on break next week. Don't know if it's just going to be a week, but apparently Horikoshi is fallen ill, so he needs some time to recuperate. But we'll definitely be talking more My Hero Academia once it returns for sure. But all the good vibes to Horikoshi. Hope he gets some rest and feels better soon. But
Tabata, who's the mangaka Black Clover, recently got sick. He had to take, I think it was 2 weeks.
Oh, man, I've heard a lot of really sad things. Like Tabata's had a pretty rough go for the past like 6 months to a year, which really stinks because Black Clover's at a pretty cool part right now.
Right.
But of course, we've talked about in previous podcasts too. Mangakas are horrendously overworked and incredibly busy people, and it's very sad to hear when their health starts to fail them, just because they make so many people happy. And I hope that you know, sending all the positive vibes towards those gentlemen. Hope they feel better. But yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and move into that. That's been our discussion for My Hero Academia episode 11 of season 6. Gonna go ahead and start talking about chapter 375. So if you're jumping ahead because of that little description number there, about making a mental note of that time. But welcome to Mega Manga Mondays chapter discussion on 375. We were kind of afraid that the chapter, this fight was going to get totally sidelined, and with all the other epic things going on. I mean, we just got through the little heteromorph bit. We got Shigaraki going down. We got so many things happening right now that we thought it would feel kind of weird to jump into this fight in the middle of all that. But I thought it all worked here pretty well. Obviously, the last chapter we left on had Toga twice, I guess is the best way to call her. You come out of the portal to All for One and Endeavor's battle with Hawks there as well. And so we were all afraid, like, no, we're not going to get the Toga and Ochaco Sue thing going on, because as we just discussed about the anime, there's a lot riding on this fight. And it just kind of felt like it was going to be out of place. But I honestly felt like it worked here. we pretty much summarized everything that's going on that battlefield, and we even got some glimpses of the current battlefield. So it was a very short flashback, but I really enjoyed. Like, I thought that this chapter showed like Ochaco's a character that we haven't been able to focus nearly enough time on in the last few arcs of the series. This just quickly established how far she's come, like as a leader and being able to break down a situation, like her instantly discerning like Toga's fighting style and being like, we need a sensory hero and we need 4 people back to back to be able to stand against. Like, it's crazy that like that Toga really just has these blood powers, but she is such a good fighter that they need people with powers to fight against it. Like, it just really shows how cool Toga is. But I really enjoyed getting to see that character development for Ochaco at the beginning of the chapter here. But what were your guys' thoughts on this first chunk here?
I mean, I'll just say, I'm completely with you. I was really upset. I'll say upset at the thought that the whole that the rematch between Ochaco and Toga would just be completely just like all shown in a flashback, and that would be it, and that the next part would just focus solely on Toga doing whatever she's doing. And that ended up not being the case. And it seems like in the flashback that we did get is that none of that conversation that I've been wanting happened already. And I just feel like it's just
like it got teased.
Yeah. And I think it's
definitely teased.
Yeah. And I think it's just like a fun flip flop of just their earlier dynamic. Because it was before Toga who's the one like, let's talk about our whole thing with Deku. Let's gab, and now it's Ochaco, going after her, trying to do that. And I have a lot of thoughts there, but that's for what could happen next. So I'll let Carlisle jump in.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking the same kind of thing earlier when we were talking about the anime episode, because it's been so interesting how well everything has paralleled what happened the first time we had these big fights. And this Toga and Ochaco is clearly another indication of that, because we just saw them on the anime not have that conversation but talk about it, and now here it is coming back up again. And I think I do think that they probably will have this discussion now, although I think it is it's going to be interesting to see how well Ochaco is able to distract her, because she's clearly got her eyes on Hawks right now, and I don't know if this conversation is going to be enough to get her attention.
I don't know. I think that was like shown in this chapter, even, because I feel like that was like Ochaco's last resort. Was her trying to get Toga twice to stop going in the portal. She's just like, if you stay here, we'll talk about that romance thing you wanted to talk about. And Toga like kind of, that would have been cool, but I got shit to do. And, but Ochaco managing to get through the portal after being thrown into it by Sue means I think it'll still happen. The ingredients are still there for this conversation to happen, but as we've established, Toga is very busy, and getting to see Sadman Parade Infinite Doubles just cover a landmass of twices. Like, the only thing I can think of Ochaco doing to help that is if she somehow is able to like make that amount of land float, which will probably hurt her little tummy. But yeah. What do you got, Steven?
Yeah. So this is kind of going into what I think is going to happen, but I've written 2 articles on this already. But I really think, just because, so taking a step back, obviously the whole romance between Deku and Ochaco has been kind of sidelined. It's been kind of almost forgotten. And I think that what was happening where Ochaco is trying to get Himiko's or Toga's attention, like that is a foreshadowing of what's to come. Like that was her first ditch effort. but I believe that to get her attention now, she's going to have to do something big. And I think what this will is that this might be the moment where she finally confesses her true feelings for Deku, and it'll have to be true. So to get her attention, because that was the whole thing that Toga's obsession with Ochaco was like, what connected them was their obsession with Deku, because she believed that she liked her. So to bring that up and be like, yes, I am in love with him, and she will have to do it truthfully. I think like Himiko's at the point where able to, Ochaco is just saying anything to get her attention. But I think this is going to be when we finally get the official confession from Ochaco that she loves Deku, just like Toga does. And that's what is going to make Toga flip and focus on her. Because that was the whole thing that Toga was obsessed about, is that was their connection, was Deku. So I think that's going to happen. And I'm very excited because,
Probably for the best that Deku's not there. He doesn't need this kind of distraction right now.
No. Because he's such a damn nerd. I mean, he wouldn't... all those women fighting over Deku. Poor guy. But yeah, I think that's a great point, Steven, because I just wondering, like, it's going to force Ochaco to confront her feelings and actively be like, you know what? No, I'm fighting because I love Deku. How dare you ask him out in front of me? So yeah, I think that's how that part will result. But I'm really curious to see. I mean, does Toga only need to get somebody else's blood to like make a copy of them? So I mean, is that all in line with us possibly getting, like, if she takes over All for One, if she gets a bit of his blood?
We did keep that possibility there for a second, which last thing we need is 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and who knows what that would do with her psyche also, because All for One is clearly influencing other people whenever he gives them their powers. So it would be interesting there. But we also got Dabi there. Endeavor and Hawks are not in good shape. This battlefield has instantly become like one of the most dangerous battlefields we've seen in the entire series. Like, throwing a whole avalanche of Twices and a Chaco into the mix is just like, okay, can we please stay on this battle now? Like, we'll probably jump over to something else, but I really, really am excited that everything has come together here. I still don't think we have like an update on what necessarily is going on with the Deku fight after Kirogiri dropped off. Who did he drop off on Deku's fight? Was that revealed? I can't remember.
It was himself, and President Mike came through as well. I don't think Spinner came through. I think it was just them. But
yeah, unless they have a Sensu Bean, I don't think Spinner's going to be helpful. Another bit before they jumped over to the new battlefield. It's something that manga artists don't always do, especially with long running series, but I really enjoyed the narrator breaking down, like, this is the first time Toga has kind of thought a big picture, and she's made her full like transition to villainy, which is something that's always been kind of, I mean, she's a clinical sociopath throughout the entire series. So for us, it's always been like, well, I hear all the things you're saying, but you are murdering everybody and you don't care. So you're definitely a villain. But it was nice to get that solidified like character arc. Like, I kind of love it. Like, One Piece does it too. Whenever the narrator just jumps out and just like, and this is when, and they know they messed up, like that sort of thing. But I thought that was really cool.
I think that narrator might have actually been All for One, because he uses the same kind of terminology in the narration that he does when he's talking about her.
Like, how so? Can you give an example? That's really cool.
Like rancor in particular, that word is a very specific word, and I believe it was in the last chapter when he mentioned her or alluded to her feelings about Hawks. that he used that particular word. And so I feel like that was the description of, it's kind of like All for One being like, look how I've transformed her.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm not sure how he would have seen that battlefield though, unless he has like some sort of all sight sort of thing.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. We don't know. We know that Dabi turned down a bonus quirk, but Spinner took the bonus quirk. Toga might have taken a bonus quirk too, in which case he could be spying on her the same way he did with Lady Nagant and various other people he's given quirks to. So that could be something like that. It could also just be, this is All for One. Everything always goes according to his plan. He's just assuming that everything is going exactly the way that he wanted it to, because it did.
Yeah. I mean that's like the only downside, because I love that. It's just that if it is All for One saying that, like, he has proven himself to be wrong quite a few times in this fight, and that all of his best laid plans don't always pan out, which luckily he has other ones. He has like all these plans. But like, if it is like, if it was like the all-knowing narrator, then it would have been like, yes, it is official. Toga is evil. So I mean, I wonder. It's just something to think about.
It is on the last page of 374. All for One says the death of that sad man gave rise to rancor in a young woman's heart, and that's what. And so he kind of says the short version of basically what that narration says. So I feel like that narration is meant to be in character as All for One.
I love that.
That would be great. Yeah. There's been a couple times. I definitely remember when Toga admitted her feelings to Deku and asked him out. The narrator kind of jumped out as saying like, but at the end of the day, he's still just a damn nerd. And it was making us think, is like, wait, is Bakugo telling the story? So it's interesting. The narrator, the choice of narrator seems to shift, which is kind of odd, but I do like that idea that would be great if it's been always All for One, and All for One is the one calling Deku a damn nerd. That'd be pretty fun. But speaking of like, I thought the chapter ended very strangely. It always kind of throws me off when they throw the to be continued, but it's not the last page.
Yeah.
I've missed things because of that before.
Now.
Oh no. What was that, Carl? Sorry.
I was saying we've done that twice in a row now, so it definitely confused me on the last chapter. I was looking for it this time, but
I missed, get out of order. I missed things.
Yeah. With this chapter, it almost felt like I don't know, it felt like a mistake. But then again, the weird final panel, I don't know who that woman is. She has random thought bubbles.
She's the news anchor that we saw at the beginning of the news report doing the weather.
That's right.
But I don't know why she's there. She's just there at the bottom of the page for some reason.
Yeah, it like really threw me off. But I mean, they can't put the to be continued in that panel, so I guess that kind of makes sense. But also, Sue's like sentence is like cut off too. Like, it just felt like a really weird cut.
Well, it seems too like usually when mangaka do this, and I think Horikoshi does it, but a lot of them do, is when there's a flashback or they're referencing a moment, that usually take the panel that they're referencing and then they take out all of the text. So I'm wondering, like, but it makes it even weirder because it's like she's not even referenced. Like, why would this be a flashback to anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's usually how it is. Where they they take the panel.
They did that at the end of 374 too, with a panel going back to Toga. So that we did that recently, even, but I just don't know if that's what's going on here. It's just not clear.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go to that. Wait, so what was the panel?
At the end of 374, there's a panel where All for One's talking about her, and then it's got a panel inside of the panel from a previous chapter.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, I'll just kind of reinform audiences of, if you don't remember, a couple chapters ago, we started with a North American meteorologist talking about how these huge battles are like creating storm systems that are going to hit the United States. And it was just a really interesting like cutaway to, these powers are having an effect on the whole planet, which it's definitely like kind of pinnacle, like My Hero Academia has gotten to that point where the battles are so big and over the top that it's affecting the weather of the planet. So it's definitely like we made it, guys. We made it to planet destruction powers and battles in this superhero comic about children. But it was definitely just the bit of a tease about the Quark singularity, because she just started going on a rant, and even her editors and everybody else who's working is just like, cut her mic, because she's
well,
like
they were
talking.
telling them to cut her mic because she was saying that we need to fight all for one, and they're sucking up, so they don't want her on there. So I don't know if this panel at the end of 375 is supposed to imply that she's back on TV somehow, or what. Like, I don't know why they would let her back on TV after that, but
right. But yeah, it feels really weird, and it might make more sense when the next chapter comes out, but it just, like, of all the hype building moments in this chapter alone, the very last page just really kind of broke that for me, and really just left me with a lot of manga chapters. When you read them, you finish it and you're like, yeah, oh man, I'm so excited to see what happens next. That was awesome. This happened. I need to make a podcast and talk to a bunch of dudes about this. This chapter, though, was just like, okay, cool. Oh, she made it through the portal. And then, like, wait, what? Wait, what? Like, because
it's almost like you like bringing up One Piece. It's kind of like early One Piece with Oda. I think he dropped it, but like, yeah, he would have those, like, the story would end, and all of a sudden there's a random panel. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, it was always like, yeah, no, yeah, it's kind of like that, but not as good.
Yeah. Oh, he said it. I got to tell Ben. Okay. But yeah, so it was definitely a weird cliffhanger. But I feel like we have to also point at Sue, because apparently she saw, like, the blood vial that Toga was about to ingest, and I love, like, Sue pretty much, like, put us or informed us of how much that heroes know with, like, one sentence. Or, well, it's a couple sentences technically, but she's just like, is that all for one's blood? Whose blood is that? It reveals that they didn't know about the twice blood. If they did, I think that this whole plan would have been a lot different, because of how potentially dangerous it is for Toga to have twice his ability. But especially in the anime episode, just like narrated it too, where Toga specifically told Ochaco that she's able to use other people's quirks, and they didn't know that at that point. So it was, again, like, as I was watching the anime episode, I was just like, oh man, I'm loving this whole, like, anime episode happening, informing what's happening in the manga right now. Like,
yeah.
I would love to say it's planned, but I don't know if it's planned.
Well, it's weird too, like, because it's happening with Chainsaw Man too. It's a little just too right. It's like, whoa, wait, what? like with the whole Eternity Devil, it's like that's too perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so Sue broke apparently a decoy that attracts Nomu, and then she got portaled away. She threw Ochaco in the portal, but Sue is now stuck with a bunch of high-end Nomus, near high-ends. I think they specifically said that. And Killer Whale, is that the guy's name?
Gang Orca.
Gang Orca, yeah. There was definitely a few panels in that part that I was a little confused on, like, what's happening. Like, there's King Orca, like, grabbing the Nomu, but is there, like, a bunch of rocks, like, flying all over the place? Like, I don't know, just the action was so hectic. It was kind of hard to tell what's going on.
Sorry, I can't help you. When Ochaco and Toga aren't there, I just kind of skim over things.
It's all a blur. Well, Toga was on that page. We got sweet, like, shading and evil eye Toga look. That's actually some of my favorite panels, is the way Horikoshi draws Toga. It's just, like, so menacing and evil, but, like, playful and innocent at the same time. Like, I love Toga's design, and this chapter for sure gave us some more excellent panels with her.
what's so fun too is like during the whole like villain arc, like Horikoshi, like I remember he was starting every chapter with like a description of like the various villains, and I remember him saying in one of them that Toga is one of like the hardest characters for him to draw, like her hair, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, okay. Maybe because she's just got so many accessories, like even her hair. Yeah, that would make sense.
I imagine all those wires on that backpack thing are pretty difficult too.
Yeah, the wires, the sweatshirt like strings, the weird teeth neck guard thing she's got. Yeah, there's a lot going on with her, so I get it. So and maybe that's why like anytime he does choose to draw her, he's just like, okay, it's spending a lot of time on this panel, so I think he kind of overdoes it sometimes, and that might be why he's just like, I'm going to give this young lady a power to turn into other people who are easier to draw.
I like that.
That might be it.
That might
be
it.
That.
As I said, I'm really hoping that what happens next is we stick onto this battle because we have so much potential drama about to explode. I mean, Toga twice Parade is going to be going for Hawks. Dabi is going to be going for Endeavor, and All for One is just going to be doing whatever All for One does. But I mean, his main priority is trying to get to Shigaraki right now.
Yeah,
and
I think he may leave.
Yeah, and I don't really see anybody being able to do anything about it. Because I mean, we do have names on characters we haven't spent as much time with. Headphone Jack Girl and Tokiyami are still there too. They did get a little banged up from All for One, but they were able to land some pretty decisive blows before things shifted. But yeah, I don't know, a whole avalanche continent landmass size of Twices is gonna really, really shake things up. I mean, all of them could probably disappear with a pebble striking them because the more they multiply, the less damage they can take. Excuse me. But I mean, with Endeavor like pretty much out of it right now, he seems to be kind of the only one that would be able to like, create enough flames to take care of that. Mm-hmm. Hawks, maybe if he had all of his feathers. But yeah, I think things are getting pretty desperate. What do you guys hope will happen next?
Well, I just gotta say, like, just thinking about it, like, what if, and it's not gonna happen. But like, if like Hawks ends up killing twice again as Toga, like it's like you would be like killing him twice if you think about it. Twice.
We haven't really seen yet whether the Twice clones have a Toga personality or a Twice personality, but I'm hoping for his sake that it's a Toga personality, because that's kind of Twice's worst nightmare. There's not an original anymore. All that exists of him are these easily destroyed duplicates. It's a bit of a horrific realization.
It's so dark.
Yeah, I would almost think, like his whole backstory when that happened in the manga, I was just like, I didn't know shonens could get this dark. Oh my. But really yeah, this I almost wonder if like multiplying the quirk could expound the will of the quirk, or like we've discussed like inherited will and like bits of the soul might still be in those quirks. But oh boy, and I know that like especially with the anime episode, Toga's whole thing on like when I fall in love with somebody, I just want to I want to become them. I want to I want to taste their blood and I want to become them. Well, she hasn't done that to the point where like the quirk actually like rebelled against her, which has been proven to happen against All for One. So yeah, I would love it if like because she's multiplying the quirk so much that the will of it gets stronger, and hopefully we get like a version of Twice coming back, at least like in her head. Or that would be amazing if like she makes like 1,000 clones and one of them like has his voice. Oh, that'd be really cool. yeah, what are some of the theories on? We think I think All For One bailing is definitely seems very likely. But yeah, Hawks having to fight like twice again. But I think even in the little bits of like conversation we had in this chapter with it, it was like Toga talking, especially when Ochaco is like, "Hey, let's talk about romance, girlfriend," and twice Toga is just like, "Ah, that would have been cool, but now I got things to do," and she goes away. Um, so yeah, I would love to see twice again. I mean, hear twice again, I guess is the best way to say it. But yeah, I guess any other theories before we go into plugs and recommendations, Sean?
I mean, I wouldn't say theories, but like what I was alluding to in the anime section of this podcast is that basically Dabi's dance basically confirmed all my feelings about what's been happening in the manga. Like it's always been about Endeavor and Dabi. It was never about Shoto and Dabi. I mean, like too, like in the anime, like, and you were saying this, Jason. Endeavor completely loses it, and it's Shoto who has to, like, he's able to think through this. Like, we got to focus, we got to do this. Come on, Endeavor, snap out of it. Like that's the thing. Like, that's why I'm so glad that Dabi is back and going after Endeavor, because that's what it's all about. It's never been about Shoto, which is a shame, but that's just how it's always been. Like we've said it in previous podcasts, but Shoto's story peaked a long time ago after he accepted the fire side of him. So I just got to say that. But just watching the anime, that episode, it's like, yeah, this is Dabi and Endeavor's story.
Yeah. Well, and it really helps with Endeavor too, because for the longest time he just had no likable traits. You're just like, man, this guy sucks. Like he just wants to be All Might, and he's hurting his kids to get there, and just it was like that moment where he finally started to be like, wait, am I the bad guy? Like, and he starts, kind of trying to be a better father and stuff like that. It was just like we have that perspective. Dabi hadn't seen that perspective, so he still just thinks that Endeavor is who Endeavor was. However long ago, Toya went into the woods and he was hitting his kids, and Endeavor was hitting his kids and stuff. Like,
yeah, they didn't show as many flashbacks. I remember. I know that later on in the manga, they continue Dabi's story, but I remember, should have read it again, but in the manga, I remember them going into more detail about Endeavor's relationship with his kids. I feel like that was kind of skipped over, because I remember like a big part of it, like a lot of the flashback focused on Toya being completely like separate, no, Shoto being completely separate from everyone else, and that wasn't touched on at all in this flashback. I remember that was a big thing, that just how much Endeavor alienated his children from each other.
Yeah, I thought the anime,
I think that might still be coming up.
Oh, is that coming up? Is that coming up? Okay.
I think this is like 290, and that was like 296 or something. I looked at this a couple days ago.
Okay, so good. So that's coming. Okay, good. Because like that's such an important part of the story. I'm like, did they gloss over it? Oh.
I feel like the anime did that. Like in this latest episode, you got to hear like Endeavor like going through like, oh, this kid was born and it only had my wife's quirk, but at that time I didn't really care. Like it was cool. I was enjoying being a dad, but especially because Toya was so much like more naturally gifted. It just like hearing him rationalize like these things that Toya is like throwing out as like huge accusations, just like you only cared about making strong kids, and hearing Endeavor's, well, it's like new Endeavor, I guess is the best way to say, like new Endeavor, who is looking back and like, I did do, I was a jerk. I was a bad dad and I'm trying to do better. So getting to hear like Toya accusations of like, no, you're a monster who abused your kids. You're the worst person in the whole world. And then getting to hear new Endeavor be like, well, actually, this is what was kind of going on. Sure, that was something that I was kind of working towards, but as I started having more kids, I started, being okay with it. But yeah, I know we might get more flashbacks. I feel like that's something that's even All For One teased against Endeavor. There was that one moment in this fight, even where he like said something, he was alluding to something, and then Endeavor just like exploded. Like he was so angry about possibly, I don't know, it's been like insinuated that they found like the collarbone, but he just assumed that, like the fire destroyed Dabi Toya completely. Um, so we, even us, were thinking like, okay, is maybe like Dabi as we know him not the original like Toya? Is it like maybe a super advanced Nomu that is the furthest furthest they've been able to come in like replicating a Nomu or a person into a Nomu? I'm not sure. I think there might still be something there, especially to explain Dabi's durability, because he's gone through a lot and he's still kicking. So I wonder if we'll get more of that. But
I hope so. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I hope so too. I would love to hear if there's like an extra, thing, an extra evil thing All For One did regarding the Todorokis. But yeah, maybe we'll find out. Yeah, I think that of all the like battlefields that are going on with that, I'm probably most interested for Endeavor. Well, especially after this anime episode, I am probably most anxious to watch Dabi and Endeavor like settle their things. But I still think Dabi and Endeavor, I think Dabi will go in for a final attack and Endeavor is just going to hug him, and they'll both just go up and disappear. I that's how I see that ending.
That's a great ending.
It'll make me cry. And Horikoshi's gonna kill it, I'm sure. He's really good at doing those sorts of just like powerful attack, fading everything and that emotion. Oh, that'll be nice. That'll be cool. Well, yeah, I think we'll go ahead and move into plugs and recommendations, unless you guys got anything else.
Nope. Toga.
All righty. Toga. More Toga, please. Well, this has been Mega Manga Mondays, My Hero Academia discussion on Chapter 375 and Episode 11 of Season 6 of the anime. If you enjoyed it, please check out other Mega Manga Monday episodes. We talk about other series like One Piece, Chainsaw Man, Boruto, Dragon Ball Super's coming back. Hopefully it's better. And looking forward to that.
It's like, well, they're saying it's going to be starring Trunks and Goten more. Like that's a lot of the teasers have been. It's like a focus on them.
Yeah, which I think it will probably focus on them a little bit, which honestly it's overdue, very overdue. Those guys have just been like the new, almost the Emperor Pilafs of Dragon Ball Super, where it's just like, that's comedic relief over there. We don't have to put too much time and energy into that. But what I'm very excited about that is it's, takes place right before the superhero movie, which we did a whole podcast about. Loved Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Stupid name, way better movie. But the whole idea that like that's like several years into the future after like all the stuff that's been going on, like the Granola arc and the Moro stuff. But the anime movie specifically like had Vegeta and Goku fight, and they're like, no power-ups, no special abilities, no nothing. So you're like, oh man, this like could take place any number of years in the future. So excited to see how they continue to add on to that. They've done a pretty good job. But would love it if you checked out our works on Screen Rant as well. I write video game reviews and features. Just put out a review for the new Need for Speed game, Need for Speed Unbound, which is pretty fun. I also got a special opportunity to go play the new One Piece game on a real pirate ship in San Diego. On a boat. Cool. It was the coolest thing probably of my life so far. It was a career highlight for sure. But other than just being cool One Piece, it was really, I've been writing for Screen Rant for about a year. we're still kind of fresh off of pandemic stuff. It was the first time getting to like rub elbows with other like game journalists and stuff. So it was a very rewarding experience for me. But my piece regarding One Piece Odyssey is out now as well on Screen Rant. Please check that out. The game's really cool and a great entry point for anybody who's not familiar with One Piece. Actually, the writers like nail all the personalities very quickly. It's a turn-based strategy game, so you don't have to be worrying about moving the camera and fancy new game mechanics and stuff. It's really cool. But one last plug for me too. I have another YouTube series called Hansi and Friends. I upload comedic Let's Play videos with friends. Really, it's just a channel where me and friends get together. We hang out, we make each other laugh, and we play video games. So be a friend and subscribe, and I hope you check it out. But Steven, how about you, man? Any plugs or recommendations today?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, I have some interviews that have been coming out. There's still one more that has to be published, but the latest one was with the voice actor of Sonic and the executive producer for Sonic Prime.
Oh, that's exciting. I know you're a huge Sonic fan, so I'm sure that was kind of cool.
And it comes out tomorrow officially, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's, obviously it's focused on the video game, but I was very happy with it.
Good.
Which doesn't happen that often because I am very critical about Sonic. But yeah, so good stuff. Watch it on Netflix. It's coming out tomorrow.
Excellent. And how about you, Carlisle?
You can obviously find my stuff on Screen Rant as well, but my main project is Elven Revenue Service. It's a visual novel that's themed around 90s, early 2000s JRPGs, and you can follow that on Twitter at Elven Revenue. I've finally finished all of the sprite work, so I don't have to do any more pixel art for a long time. And I'm very excited about that. So
very cool, man. Well, yeah, definitely subscribe to that on Twitter. I'm going to have links and stuff, or I'm going to have info on our plugs and recommendations in the description, so please check that out. But you can also follow us on Twitter at Manga Mondays for updates. But feel free to reach out. Would love it if you followed and subscribed, whichever podcast thing you're listening or watching us on. Leave a comment. If there's anything you think we forgot to talk about of My Hero Academia, would also love to hear what your favorite parts of the anime or the manga were. But please check out our new episodes when that comes out, and I look forward to the next one.
Likewise.
All right. Thanks for your time, guys.